Montessori, you'll pull out your notes on developmental interaction and direct instruction, you'll pull out your notes on high scope next week and the Reggio, and you'll review those notes so that you're ready to respond to that final exam, which is going to be a case study of different children asking how would each of the philosophies help this particular child. What do they have to offer? Okay? It'll be fine. Trust me, it'll be fine. We'll be really ready to go by that point. Okay, so let's think first about research. So developmental interaction. What research is being done related to developmental interaction? What time period are we talking here, ladies? You guys know? Like late 1800s. This is important, so you want to write down the things I'm writing down. Late 1800s to the early 1900s. Okay, what's the research? What did you guys find?
Oh, that's us.
Yep.
No, that's not us.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong one. Okay, we'll do this one. We'll do you guys first. What do children need to? What do children? Let's you guys do it, Sherry.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
ours.
What do children need to learn to have success? Okay, so what does developmental interaction say kids need to learn in order to have success?
Competence,
Okay, number one. Confidence.
individuality.
What is confidence?
Competence is being able to use the knowledge that you have to accomplish your tasks, basically.
Okay, so being able to solve
Yeah.
problems? All right. Use knowledge to solve problems. I like that. Do you like the idea of kids being problem solvers?
Yes.
Do you like the idea of kids solving their own problems?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to, I really like that idea of kids solving their own problems. Is that a challenge for some kids?
Yes.
Right.
I think it's a learned skill. It's not something that you just
Absolutely, it's a learned skill. How many of you have had to learn solving your own problems? All of us probably, right? And then sometimes it depends on our support network. Sometimes our support network can be crippling. Okay, so competence is a big goal. All right, what's another one?
have. Individuality.
Okay, and what do they mean by this?
Self-aware.
Yeah, promoting sense of self. Yeah.
One of the things I really like about this approach too is it recognizes that each child has to be treated differently. Don't we talk a lot about that in our program? That you have to be child-directed and know that that activities need to be differentiated. We use that word a lot for different kids. So that idea of promoting a sense of self. And we'll even say, how about a positive sense of self? Okay, what else?
Socialization.
Social. Ooh, look at that.
There's that big word.
Yeah, socialization. And so what is that? We know that's pretty simple, getting along with others. Okay, what else?
Integration.
Okay, what does integration mean?
I wrote the way that they react to personal and impersonal experiences. Kind of.
If you look at integration, yes.
Yeah,
So
that's
personal and interpersonal. Yeah. So I think I would add maybe making connections, helping kids to make connections between personal and impersonal. I think Amanda just said this when she said, you know, so many kids think this is school and this is home and they're separate. And so then that, I think, can promote that sense of, well, I'm good at school, but I'm not well behaved at home. We hear that a lot from parents. Or I'm not very good at school, but I'm good at other things. You know what I mean? But instead, that idea that we're an integrated person, that in whatever we do, we have this open sense of learning and achievement. I mean, don't some of us really approach things with the attitude of, I can't do this? Especially when I used to teach creative activities, I would see that all the time. Well, I'm not good at art. I can't color, I can't draw, so I'm not going to be good at this class. But I would always argue, you have to be creative. It's part of being a human being. It's part of human expression. You have to think creatively. Okay. All right, good. So those are the goals. So now looking at these goals, what do they remind you of? What current curricular approach do they maybe remind you of?
The project-based.
Project-based, learn absolutely, which would be like a Reggio approach. What else do they remind you of?
Socialization is one
A Head Start, absolutely. Absolutely, we know that Head Start is going to get its beginning in developmental interaction approach, right? Remember the part when we were talking about the discussion board where they said Bank Street was the model classroom. So when Head Start gets its start in 1968, they basically say there's no other classroom that we would want to look like besides that Bank Street classroom. We want that to be the ideal, that's the ideal classroom, the ideal environment for learning, okay? All right, so let's go on. Let's go on to this one. So what research was being done that enables this approach? What gives it, what research really supports this idea? What did you guys come up with, Christina?
We had like the goal of development would be focusing on individual potential.
Okay, what page is this? Is page 75 and 75. Okay, so page 75 and 75. Okay, the goal is what?
Focus on individual potential and interest in self-expression.
Okay. Did you guys write down psychodynamic theory? Okay, that's one word I want you guys to write down and be kind of familiar with. The psychodynamic theory. The most famous psychologist ever is who?
Freud.
Very good, Freud. Okay, and so Freud says that our past is what? Is our past important? Was he, according to Freud? Our problems are always from who? Our childhood. That's what Freud said. So it's all about our childhood. It's all, and particularly, it's all about my mother, right? My mother did me wrong. My mother caused all kinds of problems. So Freud used the psychodynamic theory, this theory of how we developed in childhood, to help everybody understand their own adult development. So Freud would often say, if somebody came to him with a problem, and maybe they had, and this is commonly what Freud dealt with, they might have a sexual problem, and Freud would say, well, we have to examine what happened in your childhood, right? That's kind of the classic psychologist thing. Tell me about your childhood, right? Mm-hmm. So Freud was really getting at the roots that a healthy perception of self developed in childhood, okay? So with the psychodynamic theory, now think about this. Really, developmental interaction is very heavily influenced by the psychodynamic theory. Because why? What's important?
Our past.
And it's particularly, what creates a healthy sense of self? What happens in our
Childhood.
what happens in our childhood. So Freud is really kind of holding up this idea that childhood is one of the most important periods of development. And if you have a bad experience or something terrible goes wrong in your childhood, that's going to influence you into adulthood. So why would that be important to preschool educators?
Because we have them at the most critical time.
What?
We have them at the most critical time.
Absolutely. And what should our primary job be?
Making them
Helping them to
Develop.
a
Positive.
positive sense of self. Because if we do that in childhood, they won't be screwed up for the rest of their lives, right? So this was an incredibly important thing to understand, is that when Freud is writing his theory, it's really capturing the attention of the nation, and particularly early childhood educators who are saying, okay, we get it. We agree. So what's important to focus on then? How do you develop a positive sense of self? Is it through ABCs and 1, 2, 3s?
No.
How do you do it? What do you focus on? Let's go to that slide above. You see that?
Yeah.
Can you see how that flowed out of the psychodynamic theory? You get it by practicing competence, solving your own problems, right? What makes you feel more confident than knowing that you changed your own tire? I did it myself. My dad didn't do it. My boyfriend didn't do it. My husband didn't do it. I did it myself. Darn it. I feel good about that. Okay? Individuality. Learning that whoever you are, that's valuable. Whatever your strengths are, those are valuable. Socialization. Being able to get along with other people. Integration. Making connections between my personal learning and my impersonal learning, my school environment, my home environment. So as a whole, really focusing on that development as a whole person And that's really what's important. So can you see how that psychodynamic theory was such a critical piece? Because suddenly we have these psychologists that are coming along, like Freud and Vygotsky, and they're talking all about childhood. Childhood, which has been really ignored for a long time, is now the focal point. And people are really saying, gosh, this is what needs to happen. Okay. Oops. Okay, so what else did you guys have?
For the goal part, we didn't get to the footnote.
Okay, so let's look at the footnote on page 68. What did you say was the goal of development? Just what you guys told me, right?
We have those two.
Okay. So look at, just real quickly on 68. Okay. Somebody read that really fast. Patricia, can you read it?
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
Okay,
Have we accepted
Okay.
that?
Have we accepted the traditional cultural assumption that childcare is women's work and is therefore low status? So what's so great about those old nursery school teachers anyway? Are we saying that our field, because a woman's field, regardless of many warm and wonderful men in it, did not count until the male psychologists entered it in the 60s? To progressive educators, harsh discipline was anathema, interpersonal interaction was a prime importance, and emotional expressiveness replayed, and the arts were highly prized. Lack of discipline is soft. Love and friendships are soft. The arts, unlike sciences, are soft. Emotional expressiveness are soft. Children are soft. Little children are softer still. And women are softest of all, as are the areas of work historically allocated to them. Our cultural idea, on the other hand, is tough, hard, and masculine. Hard, science, for example, is far more highly esteemed than a soft field for the first time became suddenly male.
Oh wait, you missed it. Soft fields such as domestic science. Okay.
As domestic science, it is coincidental that when in the 60s the leadership of our field for the first time became suddenly male. Psychosocial went out of fashion and cognitive learning objectives, scientific terminology, and statistical research swooped in. We have managed to overlook the progressives' extensive scientific research, not because it wasn't done primarily by males, but because, far worse, it wasn't even done in the male mode. Distance, time, objective, read and statistics. The progressives just observed, recorded, hypothesized, experimented, and did the other things scientists do.
Okay. I love that quote. I think that quote defines a lot of what was going on in our field. Women, for centuries, have been taking care of children, right? They have been doing it in a very, many times in a very organized way, but they had not been writing down their observations. It hadn't been presented as hard empirical data, and it wasn't until, we see the psychologists in the late 1800s really starting to talk about this is the way that people develop, that all of a sudden people start paying attention to childcare. Do we see echoes of that still? That childcare is women's work. 97% of teachers are women, are female, and they're lower paid, there's less resources, and a lot of that, I think, still exists in our society, and we don't realize